Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of AA Meetings. This is a solo video podcast about electoralism. There were supposed to be some jokes to start it off, but I tried multiple times to upload this video, but the editing software and YouTube doesn't seem to want to cooperate with me. Either the audio is not syncing or the file sizes are just the quality is just too sporadic. So I'm no longer in the mood to tell the jokes, actually. Maybe sometime this week or later on this week there'll be another monologue episode, but for now it'll just be the political discussion. It's about electoralism, like I said, and the reason why some leftists bring it up as a reason not to even bother voting for Biden, to waste your time. To sum it up, for those of you guys who aren't familiar, it's based on like the Marxist conception of the state, right? That the state is a function of it arises from the conflicts, the antagonism between classes, and that antagonism itself is a product of the economic mode of production, right? So, to phrase that more simply is that. Think you have a capitalistic society, right? Creates a bourgeois class and a proletariat class, right? The factory owner and the worker, and that conflict needs to be managed in some way, right? So that's the state functions in that way, but it doesn't function as some people would hope, to regulate it and to find some consensus, or right, to as a pressure release valve or anything. It functions to subjugate the lower class, right, to ensure the domination of the ruling class. And it's a tool of theirs to maintain the power that they have, and just to maintain that inequality, and to keep that eternal contradiction from ever leading to their overthrow, right? So that's why leftists are skeptical about this system, this bourgeois democracy, leading to any active change, is because it's structured to prevent any of that, right? So like this concept of, although we think about it as a democracy, the term democracy is often used, in actuality it's more of a bourgeois dictatorship, right? And this is a view that I really hold, I agree with. Like a bourgeois dictatorship might actually seem like a bit of a extreme statement, right? Especially if you're American, you've grown up thinking of it as being the land of the free and whatnot. You're told about, the brilliant minds of the founding fathers and how they created this but in actuality, right, you look at, there's this great Princeton study, looked at, I believe, 11,000 studies, and found that the opinion of the average American did not matter at all, right? If they were all opposed to it, 0% approval, still had about a third of a chance, with 30% of a chance to get passed into legislation. If 100% of people were in favor of it, it still had 100% of average people were in favor of it. It still had about 30%, right? That's the chart. Absolutely no movement. But if it was, the economic elites, which they looked at, then it's almost like 1-to-1. Like the more they like it, the more it does, the better it does, right? The more likely it is to happen. So you see that corruption, by the corruption of money, function makes the quote unquote democracy function as an economic dictatorship, right? Dictatorship by the business class. Not only that, though, there's in United States specifically, you do have, not specifically, but many of these Western countries, you have non-democratic institutions like the Supreme Court, which could be used and have been used to roll back or block any like substantial change that popular movements bring about, right? Good examples in American history are the Reconstruction period, well, more famously the Progressive era in the early 20th century, where a lot of it was rolled back steadily by the Supreme Court. There was nothing that could be done. Practices also like the disenfranchisement of voters, of the poor, minorities. It all goes to show that this system is not really democratic, right? And that it is structured, again, like I said, to prevent any actual movement. So if we were to, in our context, the reason I would bring it up is that if we were to say, instead of having Biden as the nominee, if it was Bernie and he had somehow 60 senators who are like gung-ho, ready to pass anything that, ready to pass Medicare for all, really excited about that issue, even if they were all to pass it, the Supreme Court would likely turn it down, right? And even if we were to somehow get the Supreme Court, right, if we were, go through electoralism far enough, there is well after Marx, Capital developed a way to react to the rise of popular movements, which is fascism, right? If they just throw the veneer of democracy out the window and assert it with violence, establish their power and their dominance with violence, right? And you can see from Hitler's rhetoric and whatnot, from Mein Kampf, that his reason of being really is it's a response to the left movement, right? The Jews were the focus of much of his criticism, like attacks, but even he believed that the Jews were corrupting the country through cultural Bolshevism, right? Cultural Marxism, as Jordan Peterson would put it. But that is another response that the bourgeois democracies tend to have to these popular movements, right? So, I understand, I accept the criticisms of the system that the leftists make, but I still think that you should go through Biden. And the reason is, right, because Marx and Engels, I think this quote specifically is from Engels, talks about how, for all its flaws, the bourgeois democracy, this universal and suffrage, it functions as a test of the maturity of the proletariat, right? To see if it's ready to govern, if it's powerful enough, organized enough to take over a country and reshape society. And I think Bernie's loss shows that, we just aren't there yet. We need some time to develop, more time to organize, more time to be able to, undermine some of the propaganda machines that did us in. And what's important for this election is the context which will create to develop in, right? Either in a Biden presidency or a Trump presidency. And there are significant differences, right? I think you'll find, right? So it's like there's some people who would go for Trump just for accelerationist reasons, right? Thinking that the worse it gets, the more people will likely be radicalized and the more progress the movement will have, right? The more adherence, and even though it'll be bad, short term, the popular pushback against it will more than undo all that damage, right? And there's some validity to that, we've seen, because of during this summer's protest, Black Lives Matter movement, the just sheer amount of police brutality, all the tear gassing, rubber bullets, all the people who've lost eyes or died. The video, it has functioned to galvanize a lot of people into actively fighting this, right? There's a thing Abdi and I have talked about numerous episodes. There's a plane going on. I'm speaking. Yeah. But Abdi and I have talked about this on numerous episodes before. It's this concept of moral shock, which is essential for radicalization, right? You see something that happens in your system, in the system that you live in, and it just, it moves you to action. And if this Trump presidency continues for another 4.5 years, then there will be quite a large amount of a moral shock, one can imagine. And maybe that will lead to some more movement. I don't take that route personally, because I think I don't want to subject the people I'm fighting for on behalf of, and the group I am included in, to suffering material. And this accelerationism would require noticeable decline in the quality of life of the average working people, right? And just from political reasons, right? Even if just cynical political reasons, I think it's going to be hard to convince people that you're on their side and fighting for them if the first thing you did politically is take steps to make their life worse, right? Which is the accelerationist playbook, right? So Reason though Biden would be different, right? And it's we it's he is under different political pressures, right? And that isn't to say that he would be bent to the left. That's not at all what I'm saying. I don't think that's going to happen, right? It's just to like it shows. Like I'll give you examples. Like we just going back to that Black Lives Matter movement. So Biden and Harris both talked about looting. Which shows that they buy into the right wing framing. They adopt that on this issue. They are on the right, right? And it implies that they would, if they were in office, send the National Guard in just like Barack Obama did, right? Just like a lot of Democratic governors are doing. And I don't think Biden is going to be brought onto our side on that issue, but the way Trump interacts with those rioters is he uses it to galvanize his base, right? If there's an active Black Lives Matter protest movement, Trump brags to his supporters about how he's going to suppress it and whatnot. So if there is, let's say, the use of the troops by a Biden administration, right? That is at least something that they feel as if they are handcuffed by, and they would try to go. Trump cries it from the rooftops and whatnot. And the reason this is mostly important is because Trump has focused on Antifa and his using that, that focus, it means that he's going to use the government to disrupt any kind of left organizing, right? There's a case which might seem extreme, but it's becoming more and more commonplace. A protester in Seattle who there was a police officer who bumped into her car, scraped his knee, right? She was moving through. There was an emergency she had to get through, and what they did was they claimed that they went through her Twitter account. They found like a meme that she posted or retweeted or something like that, and from that presented that to the courts as like a sign of a premeditated desire to murder cops with her vehicle, right? So that thing that led to a scratch on the shin of the cop was actually premeditated attempted first degree murder. So it's this is the tactics that the right wing uses, and because Trump sees Antifa as ascendant, both as a political force undermining him, and as something that he can use to galvanize his base and make him seem like he's an effective leader. He's going to focus his energy attacking leftists, preventing us from being able to do the work that I said needed to be done, and that Bernie's loss was evidence that needs to be done, right? And it's like Biden would, in his own way, attempt to undermine the left too, right? It's just he wouldn't be doing it through terror, using Homeland Security to round up anybody who retweets anything sympathetic to Antifa. What he would do is a similar playbook to the way he won the primary, which is almost like a manufactured consent, right, or manufactured opposition to socialistic policies, where the media and a lot of the establishment, a lot of high-profile Democratic Party members use whatever influence they have, leverage that influence to denigrate socialist policies and left policies, make it seem as if it's pie in the sky, unreasonable, effectively lying to the American people about the cause that we are advancing. The reason I'm not so worried about that is because although they do have the media and the bully pulpit and all that, we do have like a much more effective way of translating, expanding our messaging, which is social connections, right? There's a saying that's often used, they have money, we have people. That is 100% true. And if it resonates, these arguments resonate much more when they come from somebody somebody you care about, than they do from, fucking James Carville on CNN or whatnot, even from a politician, a person I admire. And added benefit is that we don't have to rely on distortions of any particular policy, right? Yeah, so we can, for like looking at Medicare for all, if your friend is indoctrinated into thinking, it might be too expensive for the American system, maybe we could explain to them, it would be very effective, that, it's actually a cost savings for the average American, right? And also, after you explain to them why they chose to tell you that, hide you for the fact that it saves $3 trillion over every 10 years, right? Every decade, which is a considerable amount of money. Um, Point out also that many of these people are like Biden, example, for example, he said like family members in the health insurance industry, right? And the private hospital industry as well, right? I don't know if Biden specifically has people in that one, but I know the private insurance company does. And if these companies are evaporated, right? If these companies are made to wither away under a system where nobody really needs them, then a lot of capital that was invested into the development of these companies would be rendered useless, right? A lot of people have to find new jobs, new careers. A lot of people's stock portfolios will be hurt, right? And that's what they care about much more, and that's the reason why they lie to you about, the thing. So like, our because we have, the truth on our side, because we have really moral superiority on this issue, and because the people on the other side are cynically attempting to manipulate people to further their own political interests, right? Their own desire to hold an office, their own desire to profit off of a amount of legislation, then we can really mop the floor with them, right? And this is much easier to do in a Biden administration, because we already know that Biden's policies, Biden-Harris policies, are not going to lead to a tangible improvement in the lives of people, right? Everyday people. Like one example I'll give is like Biden his housing plan, right? He had it said he was going to quadruple the tax credit, quadruple the rent credits that people would receive, right? Rent subsidies. Making sure that nobody pays more than 30% of their income, right? Superficially, it looks nice, right? He's quadrupling the amount of funding, right? His supporters are screaming it from the rooftops. All these lefties, they say Biden doesn't have any policies. That's bullshit. Look at this amazing one. But when you look at it, it's a, it's a Reagan era plan of right, and the reason it doesn't work is if you gave people rent subsidies without any rent control or without any private housing, public housing, all you do is subsidize private rent. It incentivizes the landlords to just jack up the rent, right? They're just not going to lead their tenants to move out because they're not feeling the costs. He's just getting more and more money from the government, right? That's going to inflate the costs of the program, and that's going to be used by Republicans to propagandize against it, right? They're going to cut the program as soon as they get a chance, saying it's a waste of money, and people are going to be back right in square one, right? Both of these things, of course, could be avoided. That could be entirely be avoided if you had either two things I said, rent control or public housing, ideally both, but that's not what Biden's going for. So if we advocate for these issues, show people why Biden's policies aren't working, we're in a unique position to, give people a contrast, right? And under Trump, that's just not going to happen. It would all be in the abstract, right? So, like, even then, though, like, if we were to, let's say, use the, failings of a Biden administration to rally enough people to, get a successful challenge, 2024, right? Cancel, bump out Kamala Harris and get somebody actually decent to run for president instead of, because Biden did say he's going to be a one-term guy. Even if we, get everything we want, there's still no guarantee that like it's going to go. We'll see. What will happen though is those forces that we talked about, those anti-democratic forces within our system, their democratic system, will come to the forefront, right? And so, like I said, even if we get the person we want the next election, we organize, we galvanize, probably not going to get what we want. But it will be clear to the majority of the people who will have been supporting us in this drive by then. The majority of people will realize that, oh, wait, this actually isn't a democracy. These people who were saying it was a bourgeois dictatorship aren't actually cranks. They're right? And then we can begin the work of reimagining or is constructing a more democratic system, right? I don't want to, speculate about as to what that would be, because I would just lead to some utopian garbage, right? No, but I'll just say that, in America, like constitutionally, they do have the option. And this is one thing that, for all his faults, Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks, he brings up pretty well, is the Constitutional Convention, right? And in theory, you can redo the entire thing. You could have a complete revolution just with meeting a certain threshold of votes in a certain number of states, right? And the thing, though, is like, if there were to be a violent backlash to that, you would have the moral legitimacy or moral authority, which matters, right? And you would have a lot more supporters to defend you, right, and fight alongside you. So you're in a much stronger position. All right. So like Engels said, it's a good test of the maturity. Not there yet. The best context in which we can develop is under a Biden presidency, and let's hope he gets in and mock him consistently. So thank you and goodbye.